Yes, hello, that's right. It's Joe here, live for Joyrider TV, back with some very interesting Q&A. And today we're going in with what could be quite a hot topic, which is, am I ready to hit the race course? Yeah, it's a big topic because a lot of you guys watching, perhaps you've never raced before, you've done a fair bit of cat sailing, but never actually hit the race course. So to know if you're ready to hit the race course, that's quite a big deal, because I know if you haven't done it before, it can be quite an intimidating prospect to get out there and mix it up with other boats. So I've written some notes actually on a bit of paper, and it's difficult to know where to start in the whole thing. But what we could look at first is, well, what we're going to break it down into is you're going to need a certain amount of knowledge. You're going to need a certain amount of control of your boat. And once you've got that, all you need is the actual competition to be going on for you to be getting involved with. And I'm just going to say from the start, it's not as intimidating as you think, as long as you're reasonably sensible about it. So, firstly, there are different levels at which you can race your boat. This is probably going to sound quite obvious to those of you who have thought about this, but at the most simple level of racing, it might just be there's you and one or more of your friends who've got other boats, and you say, right, let's go out and we're going to have a race. So, the new technology, by the way, magnet. Yes, very nice. I know. Yes, so it might be, right, you're standing on the beach, you've got your boats, and you and your mates, you say, right, let's have a little race. And there might be something out here, like there might be quite a convenient buoy out here. There might be some sort of structure in the water here. There might be something else like a boat that's on an anchor here. And you might say, all right, so we're going to go out. We're all going to leave at the same time. This is the most simple, easy, lowest level of intimidation of racing. The only thing to fear is if you think you're going to win, if you don't win. That's the thing that is the biggest bit of devastation in racing. So you could, and the wind is from the top as always. You could go, all right, we're going to start off by going to the buoy. So you have to tack out to the buoy. In racing, by the way, we generally leave the marks on the left-hand side. It's just the way that it is. Now, the only times when it's generally not the left-hand side is in two styles of racing. One is called match racing, which is two boats head-to-head, like the America's Cup. The other style is long distance, where it might just work out that you're going around the buoys the other way. So you say, all right, we'll go around that one, round that one, we'll go round there, round that one again, and then first one back to the beach is the winner. So that is very much the entry level of racing. But it doesn't mean that you have to have done that before you go in at the next level. So the next level, I would say, is what's called club racing, which is usually if there's a sailing club or somewhere like Wild Wind Sailing Holidays, which has a fleet of boats. Most clubs or holiday places, in fact, will organize a race day once a week where everybody can just get out on the water and race. So that would be the next level. Again, this is it's less intimidating than the higher levels, because at a club, in theory, you would know other people there, and those other people will be able to help you. before you set off. They might say, yeah, this is what I'd recommend. This is the sort of strategy you can apply if you need a bit of strategy. And it's very friendly at club level. There might, of course, at your club be a couple of dinghy sailors who are really into it, who are not particularly friendly on the water, but you'll soon learn who they are and you'll just stay away from them. Easy. Yeah, so that would be the second level. And I think as we go through these levels, we'll just talk about what sort of course it might be. So in club racing, it could absolutely be anything, because maybe your club is on a river or a fairly narrow, a constrained waterway, let's call it. So you might be slightly restricted in where the course is going to be because of the geographical nature of where it is that you sail. So you might have like a start line and then out to a buoy, round here, and then they say, right, you finish between this buoy and a building on land, kind of thing. Might be like that at a club level, or it might be open sea, might be on a large lake, anything at all at club level. But yeah, you yeah. All right, so going up to the next level is when boats from around your area might be traveling to go to an event. In the UK, we call this an open meeting, but these races could have all sorts of different names. Like, for example, in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, USA, starting on, I believe it is the 4th of April, is the Midwinters East, which is similar, the same kind of thing as an open meeting, where boats will travel to the event, and you generally get bigger numbers in these sort of meetings. So in an open meeting, depending on the class of boat, it could be between maybe 10 boats if it's a less popular class, or it might be as many as 30 or 40 boats if it is a popular class. Hopefully at the Midwinters East, there'll be 50 or 60 boats. We'll see. I'll be there. And then in all of the rest of these categories, the course is fairly similar, where you'll either have what's known as an upwind downwind course or a triangle course. So let's just talk about what the course would generally be in this kind of race. So you have a start line, which will be between a boat. This might be a motorboat or perhaps a yacht, anything at all. And then you have, that's your start line. It might be a buoy. It might just be a pole with a flag on it. You're gonna be asking, how do we find out? Well, this is going to come into the knowledge section of what we're talking about. And then the first mark is what you'd call the windward mark, because it is to windward of where you're starting from. And then a standard course for catamaran racing these days would be to have, you'll either have one or two marks. We'll keep it simple. We'll say we'll have one mark just here, the other side of the start line. And then the course would be something like this. You'd start, and we'll draw in the tacking as well and jibing. So from the start, we go off. We ignore this mark from the start. Again, going around this buoy, leaving it on the left side, the port side of the boat, and then coming downwind. And we want to go round this buoy. So we jibe when we're at about 90 degrees round the buoy. And in the sailing instructions, which we'll come on to in a minute, they'll say how many laps it would be. So maybe it's 2 laps. Good idea to count. We tack there, go round for a second time, and then perhaps the finish line is the same as the start line, and there we go. Easy. The course might vary, but this would be a standard course from open level all the way through to the highest levels. So the next level after open meeting kind of level might be a regional championships, like perhaps your country has an inland championships, or I think in Italy they have what's called Alpine Cup, which is like on a mountain lake. Regional, and then after regional, the top level event within your country would be a national championships, which is where all of the boats of a certain class are invited to travel to a venue, which would be a venue with enough space for the expected amount of boats. And then at the national championships, everyone races against each other. And at the end of that, the new national champion is declared. Lovely. Very nice. And then, of course, we could go above that level to above national level would be perhaps European. We have, yeah, you wouldn't have that in America so much, not a Europeans, but in Europe, would you believe, we have a European championships in most classes. And then above Europeans would be world championships. And then above world championships, then you get into the heights of like the Olympic classes. And at the top of the whole thing would be the Olympic Games for the types of boat that we're talking about on Joyrider TV. Yeah, so those are the different levels of competition which you could attend. Now, one type of competition that I didn't mention, which would kind of be somewhere between club and open kind of level, are long distance races. Now, these can be a great way of getting into some racing if you haven't done any racing before, because generally in long distance races, the fleet is much better, much more spread out. So in a long distance race, you might have the same sort of start line, but then there might be a geographical feature that you're going to sail around, or you might be sailing around an island, like in the Rondon Texel, the biggest catamaran race in the world. You might be sailing along a coastline to the next venue. To the finish would be at the next point on the coastline. Many different formats for a long distance race. It basically depends on what geographical features are available in that place. But a long distance race could be anything from, I don't know, about 15 miles all the way up to, in a day, maybe about 100 miles or something. Could be quite a long one. Just depends on the event. So that is also a consideration, a type of event. All right, so I'm just going to check in with everyone who's checking in before we continue into part 2 of what experience do you need to get into some racing. So we've got Mark and Janet on board in Ohio. 40 days until spring. No ice on the lake right now, hoping for an early start. Oh, yes. We got Mr. Tony KP in Denmark. Great to have you with us, Mr. Tony KP. Spicy Fist 1 is on board, as always, just helping to keep us all going. Okay, we got Jose, who is in Macau. Haven't heard from Jose for a while. Happy New Chinese Year. Happy Chinese New Year. Year of the Dragon, in fact, Jose says, which maybe in the sort of boats that we're talking about, It's year of the Dragoon. Yeah. So it's time for the kids to get on board. We got First Light sailing from Galliano Island, British Columbia, Canada. Great to have you with us. Aaron's here from New Zealand. Good morning, Aaron. I believe it must be something like, 5:30 in the morning where you are? Great job. Leland Lee, as always, tuning in from Clearwater, Florida. We've got Edward on board who says, if we didn't race, we would not know how to gauge ourselves and how well we were sailing. Yeah, which is a very good point, which we could even say, what is the point of racing? I like going out sailing and having a nice time without the stress of other boats in the sailing in close proximity to where I am. But if you go through your whole sailing life without ever sailing in reasonable proximity to other boats, you're never really going to know, unless, of course, these days we're using GPSs to get on the speed stick, but you'll never really know how well you're sailing your boat, because there's nothing better as a gauge for how well you're sailing your boat than another boat of the same type, which is near to you, and either you're going to be going faster or they're going to be going faster, or you might be going at the same speed, would you believe? Yeah. So, it's a very good reason to start racing. But another good reason to start racing is it gives your sailing session some real purpose and discipline, which means you have to be on the start line at a certain time. You've got to be starting the race at a certain time. You've got to sail around a certain course. So from perhaps your sailing life is not so disciplined, you just do what you like, which is nice because, as we know, it's meant to be fun. But a bit of discipline now and then is going to make you a better sailor. Which, do you think you would have more fun in those fun sessions if you were a better sailor? Perhaps you would. Yeah. So those are some very good reasons for doing some competition. But for like going to an open meeting like the Midwinters East, a really good idea of going to something like that would be, especially if you haven't been before, if you've never even considered racing, there'll be a load of other sailors there, a lot perhaps in the same type of boat that you've got. And it's a great way of looking at other people's boats, like when they're on the beach, seeing how they're set up, thinking, oh, I could do, that's a good idea. I could do that with my boat. And talking to the other sailors, finding out if you and they have similar issues with your boats, or you've done similar things, and new ideas can come from these get-togethers of like-minded individuals. And it's a great way of meeting people who might end up being really good friends because of these mutual interests. Good reasons to get into a bit of racing. Okay, we've got Ryan on board in the Hawaiian Islands. Yes, we have. Ryan says, hi, all from the deep Pacific. The bees are starting to swarm. That means we're chasing the nectar. Let's get after it. All right. Nice one, Ryan. We've got, sorry, my knowledge of reading the Russian language is limited, but is it Hector from Russia? Nice to have you on board. Hope it's not too cold where you are. All right, Leland Lee says we race twice a month at my club. We got Max on board in Rosenheim, Germany. Great to have you with us, Max. Always a pleasure. Never a chore. All right. I'm going to go on to the next part of am I good enough to go to my first race? So Next bit is knowledge. There are a few things you need to know before you before you actually get on the race course for the first time. So the first thing, which is good to know, is the procedure of the whole thing. So at these different levels that we just talked about, the procedure is going to be different. So at a mate's level, it will just be like a couple of guys standing on the beach, and you say, we're going to go there, there, there. Right, you get your boat, everybody on the water. Okay, we ready? Let's go. Easy procedure. Then going up, the procedure might be slightly different. So at club level, it might be like, right, the race starts at 11 a.m. and at 10 a.m. there will be a briefing. Nice. Not all clubs do this, but some do. And you might have a briefing when you go to an open meeting or to a regional or national or any level of competition. There should be some sort of race briefing on land in good time before you need to actually be on the start line. And in the briefing, what will usually be there is at the lower levels, like at club level, club level will be, all right, this is the starting sequence. But at club level, most people will be racing there most weeks, so you'd know the starting sequence. But it's a good time to ask questions. Like if you haven't raced there before, you could say, could you let me know what the starting sequence is? So I think the starting sequence is a good thing to know. What you'd usually have, the starting sequence will come from the starting boat, or perhaps if you are sailing at club level, the wind might blow side onto your club and you might have a buoy like here, and then you might have a box on land with a flagpole. And this is the start line, like this. But regardless of which type of start line you've got, what's likely to be is some sort of preparatory signal, which would be at around 5 minutes. So it's a good idea to have a watch with a countdown timer. And when you know what your starting sequence is, get your countdown timer ready. So set it to 5 minutes. And then when you go out for the start of the race, park your boat and wait for the 5-minute signal. This will usually be a sound signal accompanied by a flag, or it's actually a flag accompanied by a sound signal. When that sound signal goes, flag goes up, you start your clock. And then you know that 5 minutes later, you need to be crossing the start line with good speed in the right direction. All right, but we're not going to go into tactics, strategy, or anything else like that just now. We're just going through the nuts and bolts of how to get around the race course and what level of experience you need. So, yeah, there'll be other flags during the starting sequence. So there's likely to be a second flag at 4 minutes with a sound signal. This is really useful because you might miss the first signal, but you know the flags are going to be different colors. So the second flag would probably be, don't know if it's everywhere, but in a lot of places, called the Blue Peter, which is a blue flag with a white square in the middle. Blue Peter or P signal flag. That means preparatory. That would usually be after the class flag, the first flag that goes up. And then maybe there'll be another flag on 1 minute. But again, at the race briefing, this is where you'll find this out. Now, if you are sailing at a slightly higher level, rather than having a race briefing to explain all these things, what you might have is what's called sailing instructions, which is like a online or a published, like photocopied couple of pages which just have numbered points, and one of the points will be, this is the starting procedure, this is what the course is. So it might be in sailing instructions, which you can actually read, or it might be at the race briefing. So before you can race, you need to know your starting procedure, which will either be in a briefing or in your sailing instructions, and you need to know what the course is going to be. Because although you might think, well, I'm not going to be winning, I could just follow the other boats. You need to know. It's a good practice to know where it is that you're going. Like if we cast our minds back to the what's most important when we go sailing video, I think we decided that what is most important is where are you going? So you need to know, even if you don't think you are going to be winning, you still need to know where you're going. What else do we need to know before we hit the race course? Yeah, so at our briefing, it's a time when we can ask questions like, what is the procedure for a shortened course? They might say in the sailing instructions, it's 2 laps, but what if the wind drops and there's not enough wind to get around 2 laps? The race committee will still want to get a result from that race. So they might say, okay, if there's a shortened course, we might move a mark, make it actually shorter in distance, or we might have a sound signal with a flag that means you only do 1 lap instead of 2, that sort of thing. Things like that. Good to know. Second thing we need to know are the rules. Very important, because the point of the rules is so that we can avoid collisions. So the most important rule there is to know the rules, but to avoid collisions. Now, the best way of avoiding collisions while you're out sailing, 2 things. One is spatial awareness. So to always know where the other boats are. So if you're lucky enough to be sailing a boat with 2 people, then it can be the job of the crew on the boat to be looking around all of the time and letting the helm, the person steering, know, all right, we've got boats there, we got boats there. Or they could just say, no, we're clear, we're fine. But just feeding information about where the other boats are, because you need to know where the other boats are. Otherwise, you might actually have a collision, or at best, a last minute panic of, oh gosh, we're about to hit that other boat, we better do an evasive maneuver, that sort of thing. So yeah, avoid collisions by being spatially aware. The second way of avoiding collisions is by thinking ahead. So like if we get rid of these boys, and this boat has right of way because he's on starboard tack, the wind is coming over the right side of the boat first. So if this boat is being spatially aware, he knows that that boat is there and thinking ahead. So rather than leaving it until we've got a sort of near collision about to happen, so you have to do an emergency tack, by thinking ahead, you could just alter your course slightly so you sail clear behind and avoiding the collision and not being forced into a last minute maneuver. Like if you can imagine, if you have to tack your catamaran and you're not really ready for it, what are the chances of that tack being a good one? Not as much. That's how much. Yeah. So there we go. Knowing the rules. Just so you know, there are 3 main rules to know. Port and starboard when we're on opposite tacks like this. there's windward and leeward. So if one boat is going this way and one boat is going this way, this is a big example. Port and starboard, the boat on starboard tack has right of way. So the boat on port tack has to keep going. Windward and leeward, or leeward, the leeward boat has right of way. So the windward boat has to keep clear. Again, we can avoid collisions and last minute maneuvers by thinking ahead and being spatially aware. The third one, and this is can be very relevant in a mixed fleet, is overtaking boat keeps clear. So if this is you on your Hobie 20 Formula and there's little Billy sailing up ahead in his Optimist, this situation seems fairly obvious that the boat overtaking should keep clear. But if you're in two boats of a similar speed, the same rule applies, that if you're coming from clear behind, you have to keep clear of the boat in front. There we go. All right. And the last thing we need to know before we go racing, as I said, with the sailing instructions and the procedure of the whole thing, is we need to know where we're going. Very important. So also in the procedure of the whole thing, how the races run, you then need to know, when we finish the race, are we going to have another race or are we meant to go back to the beach? Because there are safety considerations that the race committee have to take. And a lot of the time, if there's been a race, they like to have the boats to go back to the beach first, so that you can, or at least let the committee boat know that you're staying out sailing, so that when you're not on the beach later on, people don't start worrying we've lost the boat, that kind of thing. But knowing how many races there are going to be, very important stuff. So that kind of thing. All right. Hope everybody's enjoying this great insight into, are you ready to go and race? Just going to go back to the live questions. All right. Leland Lee says, any methods to weighing my Hobie 16? Yeah, we could quickly go into that. Yeah, it's not easy, actually. You'd need to, I suppose, the obvious, you see, at a world championships, incidentally, they do occasionally, depends on the class, they might weigh your boat, where they actually put your boat on four, like kind of like bathroom scales, but four scales which are all linked together through cables, so they get an accurate reading for how heavy your boat is. But the easiest way of weighing your boat might be to do it, to get an accurate idea with normal, let's call them things. Yeah, I would probably go, this is the best that I could come up with just thinking about it now. If this is our boat like this, there's the beam. We want to get a strap or a good rope which we can somehow support the boat with. So like make a bridle with rope like this, maybe from the back as well. And it will take a bit of trial and error, because what we're actually going to try to do is pick the whole boat up. So we need to have a strong tree. This is the best that I could come up with on the spot there, Lee. Strong tree. There's the branch of the tree, the strong bit. And then we put a rope or a strap around the strong tree. Then we could put our main sheet blocks upside down, so the cleat is on the top one, and then onto the main sheet blocks we put like a big scale that can weigh up to, I would go up to 200 kilos. That would be a good range on there. But you want to have that scale where you're going to be able to see the gauge. Yeah. And then that attaches to this elaborate bridle that you've put on your boat. And then you pull the main sheet, hoisting the boat off the ground, and that will give you that'll be actually a pretty accurate how much does it weigh, but without the mast. You might have to weigh the mast separately, because with this hanging boat configuration, it might be difficult to balance it with the mast on the boat as well. So that would be option A. Option B would be to weigh all the component parts individually, which you could do either with a hanging scale or with like a bathroom style scale that can go up to, I think you'd only need to go up to about 60 kilograms with a kind of bathroom sort of scale, which bathroom sort of scales do go up that high, as we know. More 300 pounds maybe. Yeah, that would be option B. Option C, if we just want to get a rough idea of how much the boat weighs, we could have one hull on the floor, have the other hull resting on these bathroom scales, and see what it says. And then we'd have to do a bit of a guess for, you know, someone from the science department, I'm sure, could come up with a better way of doing this. But if you've got an idea, in fact, and you're watching this, do put it in the comments below. What would you do to weigh your boat? There we are. All right, back to the live chat. I hope that helps a bit. We got Toot on board in Texas. Great to have you with us, Toot. Ryan says, anyone get sailing insurance for taking people out on the water? I just got quoted $1,500 for 2 days. Curious if anyone has leads on cheaper insurance companies. Yeah, usually you're if you're doing it in a non-commercial way and you're just taking friends out on the water. I know in America, insurance is a hot topic because you can get in trouble if somebody breaks a finger or something. But in the UK, for example, you insure your boat, which I don't know what a premium is these days, maybe about £500 for the year. And that covers you for all the time that you go sailing. If you sink somebody else's boat while you're out sailing, and it covers you and your sailing partner for if something happens while out on the water. So I don't know what you need there. The other thing you might be worth looking at is some sort of liability insurance. If you're taking many people out and you are concerned, then maybe for something like 200, I did speak to someone at the German boat show and about my own situation with going sailing with people for some liability insurance. And I got quoted about €300 for a year to be able to take people out professionally, giving them instruction and things. So I'm sure that kind of thing should work. So worth having a look at there. All right. So we've got Ketzinger on board. Oh, it's Philip from Brussels. Great to have you with us, Philip. Nice to have you on board. Paul's on board in Ottawa, Canada. All right. So Spicy Fist 1 says, total newcomer to racing. Is it better to have a rolling start trying to time the line, or just sit behind the line in irons waiting for the start? All right. Yeah, this is a good question. Now, what it depends on is the consistency of the wind and your ability to control your speed. So if we've got our start line here, we want to be rolling at the time of the start. So that's the first thing. But what we want to look at is when we put the boat into motion, because we don't want to be just constantly going up here. All right, we're a bit early. All right, let's go round again, jibe, go up here and just keep going all of the time. Instead, what we want to do as a strategy for the start, and this is a good way to start off, is do some practice. Good thing to do before you actually hit your first start line. Even if it means on the day of your first race, just get out 20 minutes early or 15 minutes early and just have a trial run of sailing through the start line and see how it feels to actually have to sail through this gap. You may be wondering, how big will this be? It's meant to be 1.5 boat lengths long per boat in the fleet. So if you've got, let's do easy maths, 20 boats in the fleet, that would then be 30 boat lengths long, the start line, which would be more than enough space for everybody to cross the start line at the same time. But what I would suggest when you're first getting into the racing is, depending on the amount of wind, have a few practices, see what works for you, but put your boat down here and then park up. So you could park up by letting the mainsail out, possibly put the jib on the wrong side and then push the rudders across. That's the best way to park your boat. You may feel that maybe we're not going to push the rudders across quite as hard. What's nice to do sometimes is just to keep the boat going forwards very slowly, because when the boat's going forwards, that means we can steer, which can be quite valuable. But if you're parked, sat still on starboard tack, so the wind is coming over the right side of the boat first, then the only time another boat will actually have right of way on you is if they are right next to you underneath here and they decide they want to sail up that way a bit more. Then you might have to sail up that way as well, because they've got right of way. So sit here, and then depending on the number of boats that are also starting, basically the more boats that are starting, you are going to have to move forwards earlier, because otherwise everybody else is just going to get in front of you. But the fewer boats that are sailing, that are starting, you can start a bit later and from back here get your boat up to speed, but gradually bring the jib onto the other side, straighten up the rudders, let the boat start sailing, and then slowly start bringing your mainsail in, timing it. Perhaps you feel that you're getting to the start line a bit too soon. Let the mainsail out. If that doesn't slow you down enough, head up towards the wind. Of course, you can only do that if there's enough space up here. Then just use that slowing down. If you need to speed up a bit, maybe bear off slightly. Or that could be another strategy. If you are too early and you think we're going to cross the line, but there's loads of space down here, you could bear off into this space, which, yes, you're going to go faster, but no, you're not going to cross the start line as early, as long as you've got that space. But if it is your first time out on the race course and there are several other boats there, you don't have to feel that you need to start with the other boats. You could just get in your position down here, let the other boats go off a bit if it's looking a bit crowded, and then sheet in once you've got space and start going forwards. Now, with this position, the one thing that we do want to make sure is that we put our boat in a position where we don't have to tack before the start. So if we put our boat down here, we're not going to be able to get across the start line. So we're going to have to tack once. And then here on this tack, wind is coming over the left side first. That means we're on port tack, which means all of the boats coming this way have right of way. So we don't really want to start on port tack. Not the first time anyway. So we'll have to tack again. So it's better to put your boat kind of behind the committee boat, maybe a good position, depending again on the amount of boats in the fleet, the good position between 10 and 5 boat lengths behind the committee boat. So then you can hit the start line in the middle and off we go. There we go. All right. I hope everyone's enjoying getting into some racing. So we got Kevin on board in Illinois. Great to have you with us, Kevin. I'll be seeing you in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Looking forward to it already. All right. First Light Sailing says this is addressed to Spicy Fist. You can always park, then ride. Timing the line will gain you 30 seconds to a minute of advantage. So it will depend for that particular kind of racing you're doing. For example, a long distance race might not be worth it. Yet, if you try to come in at speed from far back and you don't have this ability to bear away if you're early, being over the start line before this timing has expired means you'll be early on the start line, which will probably mean that most times it means that you have to recross the start line. And most times, well, not most times, sometimes if you're early, you can just duck back under the start line like that. But if there's other boats there, you're not going to have any rights. So difficult. The other way that it might be in the sailing instructions is after the start, if you're early, you have to go round the end and then restart. That's generally a bit safer. And especially if it's a fairly competitive fleet, they might say there's a round the ends rule. There we go. All right. Johan66, nice to have you with us, says, put a race signals sticker on your boat. Yeah, good idea. If yeah, so that you can get these stickers which have all of the flags and what they're called on there, so that when the race committee says, all right, on 5 minutes we're putting up a W flag, for example, you'll know what a W flag looks like. That kind of thing. All right. Toot says, if you want to do well in racing, hit the like button on this video. Thanks, Toot. Good fit. Good thinking. All right. Paul is on board in Ottawa, Canada. I was in a position last year where a guy tacked in front of me in the starting box. He was leeward and pushed me up into the race committee. Yeah, probably it does sound from that brief description that he didn't have rights to do that. And what good question that nobody asked, but I'm going to answer it anyway. What happens if a rule is broken? Perhaps you've broken a rule. You wouldn't obviously do it deliberately because you're all good people. But if you break a rule, two things, depending on how serious it was. One is that you can exonerate yourself. You can make it all better by performing a penalty turn, which in catamaran racing is usually a 360-degree turn, which if you're sailing up here, or let's get this fella out. So if we're sailing along, a penalty turn would be like this. You have to tack, bear away, jibe, and then back onto your original course. So a 360, which includes one tack and one jibe. The other thing that might happen if you've broken a rule, especially if you didn't do a penalty turn, is you might get protested where the boat that you infringe will shout protest. And then depending on the level of the competition, of course, you might have to go to a protest hearing where it's basically like being at school in front of the headmaster, the person who's complaining, the person who was meant to have done it wrong. And between you all, you decide if you were wrong or not. And if you were wrong, you might just get disqualified from that race. It's quite a valuable learning experience. But the problem with protest hearings are usually at the time when the protest hearing's going on, that's when you want to be drinking a cold beer. That's a problem. Yeah, so there we go. All right, we've got Hans on board. Nice to have you with us, Hans. Hope it's all good in Germany. He says, weighing the boat, put it on the trailer and then drive to the scales. That's, of course, if you've got those big scales for weighing vehicles. All right, Charlie's with us. Hi, Charlie. Nice to have you on board. All right, and then Hans continues. Take the boat off the trailer, go and weigh your trailer and calculate the difference. Yeah, that would be, if you've got these big scales, which are, I think they're for weighing trucks, then that would be a really good way of weighing your boat. All right, Benny in Sweden is signing in. Good evening, Benny. Joachin's here in Argentina, I believe. Nice to have you on board. Also, all right, here's what Charlie says. You sit on the line and then at about 5 or 10 seconds, you would do a trigger pull on the line. Trigger pull meaning you get the boat going as fast as possible, as quickly as possible. Then you give some good speed. That's what I do on my boat. Yeah, very effective. So depends on the type of boat, the amount of wind, and the amount of other boats, and how confident you're feeling as well. The more confident you feel, the more you can kind of push it. So this question has lasted the whole Q&A, by the way. Very good. Thanks to everybody for staying with us. So in conclusion to this question, in terms of your actual sailing skills, how good do you need to be before you can hit the race course? It's all about control. The first thing is you need to have the ability to sail your boat around a course. So ideally, you can sail your boat around the two types of courses which we mentioned earlier, which would be around an upwind and downwind course. So you need to be able to get your boat around the course like this. Ideally, you'll have practiced a little bit, at least sailing around buoys. When we go around a buoy, we want to go in wide, come out tight, ideally. But most importantly is when we go around a buoy, we want to be letting the sails out as we go round. Because as we know, when we're sailing downwind, we want the sails out. So upwind, we want the sails in. So as we turn around the buoy, letting the sails out. We need to have in our mind different strategies for getting around the course, depending on what's happening. Because, like, for example, off the start line, you might have ended up over here. So then you need to be able to work it out. All right, if we tack here, we'll go this way, and then we'll tack again over here. So you just need to be able to kind of visualize your method of getting around the course and have the control to be able to sail around the course. So around an upwind downwind course, maybe around a triangular course like this, which would be similar, except down here, it would take any decision making out of it for you when it is time to jibe, because there's a buoy instead. And then the other bit of actual boat handling skills that you need is the ability to stop and start your boat. So watch the video on going into irons, which I think the video might have been called Stopping Your Boat, because you need to be able to stop your boat. And then after you've stopped it, you need to be able to start again. There we go. So I think if you can do all that in the amount of wind that is on the day of the racing, then you are good to go and hit the race course. Like I said earlier, you don't have to absolutely go in pistols blazing, expecting to mix it up with everybody else. You can hang back a little bit, just keep your eyes open for other boats, look at what the other boats are doing, copy them if you think that's applicable, like the direction that they're sailing in. Think, oh, okay, we can sail a bit closer to the water because they are. Nice. And that means you're going to gain so much experience from even your first day on the race course. And, you know, maybe it won't go so well. Maybe things will go wrong. Maybe you'll finish a long way after the other boats. But the way to get something out of that is if you can kind of analyze as it's happening, if you can kind of be thinking, so why is it that they're going so much better than us? And, you know, if you can take one thing away from a bad result, then that makes it positive, because next time you can apply what you've learnt. And perhaps you finish behind the other boats, but you really don't know why. Then that is what the sailing club bar is for, where you could go and have a drink afterwards, talk to the other sailors and say, do you have any idea of why I didn't do very well in that race? Because I can't work it out. They might say, yeah, you just weren't sailing upwind as close to the wind as you could have been. Something like that. Might say one of your rudders was halfway up. Something like that. There we go. So I think if you're confident to be able to sail around a course, stop and start your boat, get the knowledge, get on the race course. I think it's a great opportunity to boost your skills. Try it when it's convenient, and then you can see if you like it. Because without trying, how do you know if you like it or not? There we are. All right, I'm going to wrap that up there on the racing. All right, one more from Spicy Fist, who says, is there a standard direction one goes around a buoy? Oh, yeah, you must have missed this from earlier. Yeah, in racing, generally, we always leave the buoy on the left-hand side of the boat. But again, this is what your sailing instructions or your race briefing are going to tell you which way you go round the buoy. But basically, I can't think so much of an example of when it wouldn't work. You have to imagine that you're actually putting a piece of string around all of the marks of the race course. So you wouldn't go down here and then kind of round here like this. It has to be the logical way. There we go. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap that up there. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Oh yeah, gosh, I almost forgot. We've got something very exciting coming up, would you believe? Thanks for staying with me there. There was a bit of a silence because I was trying to think about what it was that I was meant to announce. Yes. I'm collaborating with Whirlwind Sales in San Diego, probably the best place in the USA to get non-original Hobie Cat sales from, because Chip has kindly offered. Chip is the head sale maker at Whirlwind Sales. He has kindly offered to make me a set of sales. But the problem is, at Whirlwind Sales, you've got way too much choice of what color the sales can be. So, going to launch on Sunday. I'm going to launch a competition where you guys are going to design the sales, and then I'm going to look at everybody's designs, and whichever ones I'm going to, between myself and Chip, the sale maker, whichever ones we decide are the best designed sales colors, they're going to be the winner. There's going to be prizes involved. So I'd like everybody to get involved, because the more people, if only 2 people get involved and their sale color choices are bad, that means I'm going to be stuck with bad sale colors for all of the videos on Joyrider TV in the next couple of years. So please get involved, because the more of you that get involved, the more chance there is that we're going to come across an absolute perler of a color scheme for a set of Hobie 16 sales. So get involved. We're launching that on Sunday. So check out the video on Sunday and get involved, because that would be great. Thank you very much. And I'm going to chip off there. Just like to say hello to Ian, who's just tuned in Pembrokeshire, UK. Nice to have you with us, Ian. And Toot says, hit the like button on your way out. And I'll see you on Sunday for the launch of this massive, it is a competition. Prizes are involved. I'll let you know more about it on Sunday. Thanks very much. See you soon. See you on Sunday.